into the presentation, which is going to go over a lot of that documentary evidence, the medical evidence, I do want to tell you a little bit about Andrew. And again, I want to remind you, I'm not doing this for sympathy. I think this context matters when we're going to be evaluating the decisions and trade-offs he made after the spinal fracture. And so Mr. Giles has been dealing with bouts of homelessness, and that happened before this accident too. We're not going to be claiming that the accident started this for him, but he's worked very, very hard to try to get stability and maintain growth for himself throughout his life. He's a hard worker. At the time of the accident, he was working at least 3 jobs. He was door dashing. Big work saved this guy. It allowed him to have a way to make income on his own time while he can actually do the things that he thought would help him grow and develop stability later. Another side gig that he had was mystery shopping. So he's the guy that comes in to make sure that retail workers are treating you guys appropriately. Comes in, checks to see if they're greeting him, checks to see how the store is laid out, and they pay him for that. It's another gig that doesn't involve having to have a set schedule. What's his passion? He likes to do app development and coding. He has no formal training for that. He didn't go to school for that. You're probably guessing already, he's an introvert. He likes to keep to himself. He values alone time and solitude, and that is really precious to him. And that's why that career works for him. He doesn't have to come up face-to-face with people and talk to them to make money. He can just sit with his computer and create things. He has a creative mind. And he's been working really, really hard to overcome the lack of technical experience he has to teach himself how to do these things. Right now, he is learning he's helping test AI. And he's really, really passionate about that. So while he's trying to grow, he's doing these side gigs to make sure that he can get that stability and be able to get to a place, hopefully, where he's like me, where he doesn't have to worry about those basic needs to do the other things that he loves to do. One other thing that you're going to see about him today, he's very nervous. I'm very nervous, but I have practiced doing this. He does not like that he has to air his life out in front of me today. So please don't judge him off. Maybe him not giving you the best eye contact, or maybe he's talking fast like I am right now, or he shakes a little bit. It's not easy being up in a box like that where people are judging you. But you're going to hear from him, and he's going to talk to you about his experience, and I'm not going to spoil that right now. He's the kind of guy, though, as I've gotten to know him, that takes life as it's laid out in front of him. He's not a whiner. He's not a complainer. Sometimes to his own detriment, I think, in this context. He just wants to get by and deal with what's in front of him and try to do the best thing he can and make the best situation out of what he's got. That's the kind of guy he is, and I'm proud to represent him today. So let's get into the evidence. A couple of the things you're going to hear today, aside from testimony from Andrew, is you're going to hear clips of testimony from Mr. Williams, who has been excused today. He's allowed to not be here today. Because the defense has graciously admitted fault, a lot of what we usually talk about, we don't need to talk about today. And so the limited portions we're going to show you for his testimony really talk about other things like the impact itself and his version of what happened, so you can understand what happened to Andrew. Now, the way you're going to see his testimony, though, is by way of deposition. Deposition is a fancy lawyer way of saying conversation under oath. So there was a court reporter on the Zoom call, just like Ms. Leach, taking down everything everyone says. Mr. Williams took the same oath that Andrew's going to take today in the courtroom to tell the truth. It happened, I think, about 2 years ago. You're going to hear my nasally voice on screen, too. And there are some pieces of information that seem like they might go to fault, and that's because we tried to clip as much as we could out, and at the time we took the deposition, we didn't know what we were going to need to show you today. So if something comes up about like traffic lights and things like that, it's not something you need to consider today. You are not deciding fault today. That is admitted. You are talking about, was Andrew hurt? To what extent was he hurt? And were the decisions that he made were they reasonable? So let's get into the presentation here. Normally what I do is I'll talk to you about the accident with some flowery language to get you understanding what it was like to be there. And I don't need to do that today because we have a video. One of the cars involved in this accident was a Tesla that recorded the whole thing. Andrew at the time was driving a beat-up Honda. He, again, in and out of homelessness, not a lot of money. That Honda has a little bit of superficial damage on the right side over the right wheel well. It was hit don't remember if it was a hit and run. I'll talk to you about that. But there's some pre-existing damage. What you're not going to hear about today is lost wages. Because part of the problem with trying to present that to you in an honest way is a lot of the work he misses is because he loses the highway. And today we're not making a property damage claim. And so we decided that to give you an efficient case and an honest case, there's too much overlap. He probably wasn't going to make it to work anyway, regardless of his spinal fracture, because he lost the car. He's had transportation issues a lot since then, and that's going to come into play when we talk about those decisions that we made. So I'm going to move over to the side so you can get a better view. And I'm going to play the clip. It's about 32 seconds long. Saw that Andrew is a car that's furthest on the left. You only see him for a little bit at the end. There's two other cars involved in this accident that are not at fault either. Mr. Williams is driving that green vehicle that comes through. You probably saw some flashing lights up on the left-hand side. You're going to hear testimony from Mr. Williams about how there was already another accident there when this one happened. Part of why that's important is Andrew doesn't go to the hospital with an ambulance because he waited for about an hour or so, maybe a little more than that for one. And by the time one comes, you're going to hear from him that they were going to service that first accident first. They were waiting longer. And so there's medical record evidence we're going to show you about what happens after that. But that's really important to know about that prior accident being there. It created a time delay on his ability to get transportation to the hospital. And obviously, at that point, he has no car. That's a picture of the right side of his vehicle. We don't have a lot of great photos of the car because he's not worried about that at that point in time. So Mr. Williams is coming from Andrew's left, hits him, pushes him to the right, and a bunch of other cars get pushed in too. Andrew puts his head on the airbag. He's wearing a seatbelt. You'll see some statements in the emergency records that say no seatbelt sign. It doesn't mean he's not wearing the seatbelt. It means he doesn't have a bruise across his chest from it catching him because he's caught it on his face. And so he gets out, and this is what his vehicle looks like after it's on the tow. Now, over the right wheel well, you see that there's no covering there. That's the pre-existing damage that I was talking about. Like his right wheel is uncovered before this accident happens. But everything else you see there is the force of the impact that we're talking about today. And that's a little small, but we're going to zoom in a little bit. This is the first hospital he sees. So the first hospital he goes to is DeKalb Medical. You're going to see on some of it, it says Emory Decatur. They got bought out later on after this all happened. So if you see changing terms, that's why. There's nothing weird about that. At the time, he's 35 years old, and they say he's presenting with complaints of neck and back pain following the crash around 9 o'clock at night. It was delivering for DoorDash. He was the restrained driver, that's the seatbelt, of a vehicle that sustained significant front-end damage after being involved in a multiple vehicle collision. Airbags deployed. He reports hitting his head. He's not sure if he lost consciousness because the reason for that uncertainty is there's parts that he doesn't remember from the accident. So he's not sure if that's because he blacked out or just from the stress of it all, but when they're asking him questions about what happened, there's gaps. And so they're worried that maybe because he hit his head that there's loss of consciousness. So they do a protocol for checking in on that too. You're going to see CT scans of the head that come back unremarkable. But the reason for them doing it is that concern about, hey, he's not remembering every little detail right when he's coming to the hospital. So it says there should be a word denies there. He denies vomiting, vision changes, or use of anticoagulants. He localizes his pain to the right side of the base of his neck. He describes it as tightness and stabbing. At that time, he's rating it 10 out of 10. That's right after the accident. It radiates towards the trapezius, that's near the shoulder. It's worse with certain positions and improves with standing. He has a few scattered abrasions to the forearms and the right knee with no bleeding. We talk about some vaccines. He remains ambulatory, so he's walking around, but denies denies any numbness and weakness. That's important for right now. Remember that. He's denying at this point numbness and weakness. He reports that EMS was called following the collision, but after waiting an hour, he decided to go home and care for his dog before getting a ride to the hospital. I told you this before. Andrew's living alone. There's no feeling here. He has some friends and acquaintances, but he's kind of introverted guy. He has a dog at the time. It's a pit bull. His name's Peanut. He doesn't have that dog anymore, but he's going home to check on it first, and then come and take care of himself. He's going to be left alone tonight. This is still the same treatment here. This is the first ER visit. They give him Tylenol initially, and then later they give him oxycodone. He's placed in a C-collar. That's that stereotypical thing you think of when you think of a car accident. That's the bracing for the neck. And immediately following the CT spine result, or after they do the CT of the spine. So initially they don't put him in one. They give him a CT scan, which is a way of imaging the neck. And then they go, okay, now you need the spine brace. He has strength and sensation in the upper extremities and still feeling everything at that time. But they're consulting Grady Trauma. They want to transfer him to Grady Hospital. They're going to do that, have no experience with Grady, and that would be a good thing. They are, I think now, the only trauma hospital in Atlanta. And so they deal with more serious injuries. The CAB is saying, it's above our pay grade. We're going to send you over. This is just the EMS record of the transfer. I just wanted to show it to you to show that the importance of why they're transferring here. He's ambulatory. They note that again. They note that he's having neck pain and a neck fracture. The fracture's been diagnosed at this point with CAB Medical. Imaging is not so great at CAB Medical, though. It's too fresh. There's swelling. You're going to see a lot of repeat imaging that comes later. This is a picture Andrew took of himself right before he gets transferred. That's him in the C-collar. He has a little more hair back then. And he's just waiting. He's going to talk to you, though, about a shift in like the tenor and the mood. Multiple doctors' visits that he has. He's going to talk to you about how things go from like very slow, where people are unconcerned to the point where he's waiting a really long time, to very fast, where they're asking him to make really quick decisions. And that's going to happen again in the future with other medical providers. This is just a Grady trauma bill. I'm putting it up there just to show you. They're putting CT scans up there again. They're doing repeats. They have the imaging from DeKalb Medical already. The protocol is we're going to do another one. We want to see if you see anything new, especially as time is going on. Several hours have passed at this point. He's there all night waiting for someone to give him his clinical diagnosis. He's going to talk to you about lack of communication, really bad bedside manner, and how that made him feel really uncomfortable about what's going on around him. And so this is the repeat, right? And this is what I'm going to call our second unbiased witness. The first one was that Tesla video. And what I mean by unbiased witness is it's not anyone that has an interest in the outcome of this case. It's not a doctor that's getting paid. It's not a lawyer talking to you. It's not Andrew. It's not Mr. Williams. These are objective robotic things that are all diagnosing this problem. And so this will be the second time now that we'll see a re-demonstrated, we've seen it before, fracture of the C7, that's the low level of the neck, right transverse process, and the lamina, that's the covering outside the spine, of the cervical spine. Per neurosurgery, patient will need to maintain C-collar for 6 to 8 weeks and follow up movement. We've got to wear that brace for at least 6 to 8 weeks now. We want to do a follow-up to make sure that everything's okay, that you're feeling well. This is probably the most important note. So before I told you in the beginning, when he first shows up to the hospital, he's not feeling any of those radiating symptoms or numbness and tingling. And the reason why that's really important is it's concerning to doctors when you have that. It's a red flag. It's a big red flag for spine injuries. And so I want to direct your focus here to the bottom of the note. With your symptoms worsening, you develop a fever, greater above the 100.4 degrees, or lasting longer than 3 days. If you experience severe pain, shortness of breath, numbness or weakness of any extremities, please seek medical attention immediately. That's how we know it's a red flag. Those are the things they're looking for. That's why they're discharging. You get a sense for how they're treating people. This is not something we want to do on an emergent basis. They're like, we found you, we got you stable. Here's some Percocet, there's something prescribed. Something else that I found strange was they only give you 3 days of Percocet. And he's at the Level 1 Trauma Center in Grady with a spinal fracture. He's getting a different kind of medical treatment. You can see it's just not our problem. Take it, and if you need more, the next guy will do it. But that bottom note is critical for what happens next. He follows up at Peachtree Orthopedics, excuse me. This is his first doctor, William Robertson. He's an orthopedic doctor. And this is from September 26, 2022. That's less than a week after the collision. That follow-up note said what? 6 to 8 weeks kind of follow-up. It's coming in sooner. Why? First, they want to order an MRI of the shoulder. His shoulder pain's gotten worse. But they're also redoing scans of the neck because he's having symptoms that were concerning in the neck. Right now, they're already giving him lifting restrictions, no more than 10 pounds, only to see their clerical tasks, no driving, unless you get the MRI of the shoulder. You can't drive anyway, there's no car. But the doctor's already saying, I don't know that, I can ask you about that. You're not allowed to drive medically, I'm not letting you drive. That can be problematic for someone who doesn't really have a housing situation. And I forgot to mention this before. One of the other things Andrew does for not necessarily income, but to get housing over his head, is he'll either stay with friends temporarily, maybe pay them some cash, or do favors for them. But he had a landlord at the time, older guy, who has paid off his house already, and he's renting out a room to Andrew in exchange for Andrew doing handyman work, or tasks that he doesn't want to do because he's old. They'll get you this, they'll get you that. And so that's really important for Andrew because he stops being able to do that and starts creating friction with that landlord. So this is the next note from Dr. Robertson. This is him evaluating him. This one's on October 5th, 2022, a couple weeks after the collision. 35-year-old male. He has acute right-sided neck and shoulder pain. Acute, so he's saying it's not degenerative, it's from this accident. He's working with his job as a, DoorDash driver. You might see some other inconsistent notes like that. Don't be surprised. At one point they call him a girl. One note, I think, says he's African American. Doctor scribes are not the best, so that's normal if you see that in there. And he's T-boned on the driver's side. That's his side, and the airbag's deployed. He was seen at Emory ER and diagnosed with a fracture of the C7 transverse process. Subsequently transferred to Grady for eval by a spine surgeon who placed him in a rigid collar for 6 weeks. Prescribed Percocet at that time, but was not given a prescription. So he presents today with severe right side neck and shoulder pain. That's what brought him in the door so early. He runs out, and he has no way to manage this on his own. Currently, he notes right-sided neck pain that is worse with turning his head, and sometimes he's unsure of the specific triggers, as the pain can come without warning. It's your neck. Right? If you're like right-hand dominant and break your arm, you can understand certain movements that can do that. But when you have a neck fracture, you're going to get that pain sometimes when you're not doing anything. Additionally, he has right anterolateral shoulder pain when you see antero in his root front. And that's worse when lifting objects overhead or putting his arms behind him. So he's able to lift things still. He's not bedridden right now. And he's noting that he's having trouble doing that, though. He's only taking ibuprofen over the counter, we talked about why before, for the pain, and that has not been sufficient to control his symptoms. Hasn't done any physical therapy yet, or had injections, or surgeries on the neck or shoulder at this time, and denying pain relief researches. Gets referred up. This is a neurosurgeon, Dr. Ezekiel Casanelli. And this is the note from the first time Dr. Casanelli sees him in November. Because up to this point, all they're doing for Andrew is giving him medication and saying, let's wait and see how this heals. Like, just like if you break your arm, you break your ribs, you don't want to do anything if it's just going to heal on its own. You don't want to do anything that's unnecessary. You don't want to escalate when it's not necessary. So now we're approximately a little under, we're about 6 weeks out from the accident, and Casanelli is looking at it. Comes to see me with a chief complaint of pain in his neck, going down the right arm, and it's worsening and severe. That's that radiation. That's that red flag. He saw my partner, that's Robertson, and was apparently diagnosed with a transverse process and a fracture based on the imaging from the emergency room or wherever he was seen initially. X-rays post-accident showed some subluxation as things moved under each other at the C6, C7 level. Because of the persistent right arm symptoms, an MRI was ordered, which shows a traumatic disruption of the disc at C6, 7 as well. The spondylolisthesis is partially reduced on the MRI. That's a fancy way of saying the wheels are going over the cliff on the car. That's what's happening with the disc. Clinically, so now we're talking about not imaging. The doctor is testing the wrong person. He has symptoms consistent with C7 radiculopathy. It's that radiation of the unlisted. Spalding's maneuver is positive. Those are the clinical tests we just talked about. Given the fact he has subluxation on the MRI and traumatic disc disruption at the same level, I believe this is probably a fairly unstable area. Now they're worried that this is not going to heal right, that he doesn't have stability in the spine. That can get concerning because if it continues on that way, that's where you can get really serious problems. I am likely going to recommend surgery by way of an ACDF, that stands for anterior cervical disc fusion, at the C6, 7 level, ages 35, and recommended fusion. I want to get a CT scan to confirm the morphology of the fracture pattern. We've given him educational information regarding surgery. We're going to put him on a steroid pack for symptom relief. I believe his need for surgery is directly related to the motor vehicle accident. This is not a case where someone is really going to be saying he had this before. And if that is what's said today, you should ask where the records show this fracture from before the accident. But this is also a part of what the essential dispute is going to be on this case. Is one part of what I think is going to be said by the other side. Because he ultimately doesn't do this surgery. He puts it off. We'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the things they're going to say is, had you done this surgery, it wouldn't be as bad as it is now, what we're going to be talking about today. That's one of the things they're going to say. We have other criticisms that we'll get to in a second. And you see, this is on the bottom where they put the clinical diagnosis. So, non-displaced fracture of the 7th cervical vertebra, and then spondylolisthesis, that's that car over the cliff. So this is that follow-up visit. Acute right-sided neck and shoulder pain after the accident, working his job as the DoorDash driver, and his T-bone. They're rehearsing the history here. At his last visit, he was told to continue with his hard collar for 6 weeks and given muscle relaxers and anti-inflammatories. Those are the generic brands that you see on the records. Andrew takes the steroid, but he doesn't take the muscle relaxers. He doesn't like how that makes him feel. Since the last visit, which is the one we just went over, things are worse. He's continuing to get pain in the right shoulder that is worse with raising his arm overhead, lifting. And he has pain in the right side of his neck and noticing tingling down the right hand as digits 1 through 3. He describes it as burning in nature. He only gets 1 to 2 hours relief from the medicine, and then the pain returns. He denies getting the MRI for his shoulder. He doesn't go to it due to lack of transportation. Why is he coming in now? The first crossroads, the first choice he made, the first trade-off he makes is, I'll hitch a ride and do what I need to do for my neck fracture. And the shoulder is kind of set to me right now. So I skipped that MRI. You're going to see that is a recurring pattern in the records. Transportation issues. He doesn't have a support network here. You're going to hear him talk briefly, because he doesn't like talking about his relationship with his mom. He was in Louisiana at the time. At some of his later doctor visits we're going to go over in a second, his mom, who's not of means, is sending him money for Ubers to go to the doctor. They already have a lot of strain in their relationship. Andrew has a history of not doing the right thing. That's how he got to where he was with his housing situation before. And then he got to stability. And when he's asking mom again for money, and she's out of state, and they have this history, she's wondering, is he doing the right thing right now? Why am I sending this money? And at some point, she stops. This is one of the last imaging that we, pieces of imaging that we had. It's done November 12th, 2022. 2022. This is one of our last unbiased witnesses. We're again reconfirming that as of November at least, the fracture is still there. They can still see it. It's not healing well. And you can see it's consistent with the stated clinical history, right? When you go to the doctor, they do three things. They take a history from you. What happened before? They do physical exams, mess around with you, and do imaging. So everything they're seeing on the imaging lines up with everything he's saying, everything the prior doctors are saying, and everything they're seeing when they're seeing him in person. November 14th. This is where the surgery recommendation goes from I think to I am. He returns to see us for recheck, having gotten the CT scan. And this one, again, was an angiogram. So if you don't know, it has a little more detail than the other ones. He has a fracture through the lateral mass of C7 on the right. Talked about spondylolisthesis on the x-rays we obtained last time. He has a disc herniation as well at that level. So fracture and a herniation. Herniation is where jelly comes out. And that jelly is a really good shock absorber. But it's not really good for your nerves. And it doesn't go back in. And so again, no prior problems with his neck. And certainly did not have a cervical spinal fracture before this accident. There is no doubt that this accident caused this fracture and his need for surgery. They require that surgery at the C6-7. There is a small fragment of bone. This is the new thing they didn't see on the other scans. A small fragment of bone in the lateral mass itself that is in the foramen. I do not think this is going to require specific removal right off the bat. But if he fails to get full improvement, he might require a decompression surgery as well. They're talking about a secondary surgery they might need. They're not saying they need to take the bone fragment out right now. You'll see other records that say minimally displaced, so it's not too far off from where it broke off. And that's not the original fracture that we were talking about before. The original fracture that you can see clearly the whole time is the one on the spine itself. This is just another piece that is broken off. Patient will return to the office as needed. And this is just a list of what was prescribed. Gabapentin, you see the generic names for muscle relaxers and anti-inflammatories and the steroid. And again, he's going to concede he didn't take the muscle relaxers. Doesn't like how that fits. This is the last doctor he ends up with, Dr. Sean McCarty. This is where he goes to get a second opinion. Andrew is nervous about doing a spine surgery at his age. He's nervous about, you're going to hear from him, about whether I'm going to wake up, what my recovery is going to look like. Is it really going to help? What's the minimum going to be, even if everything works out? And so he wants to get a second opinion. And again, the touchstone of what this dispute is about is reasonableness. And so no one at the other provider groups he was at, the two hospitals and the first orthopedist, ever offered him an alternative course of conservative care. You saw that other note about no PT, no shots. And so he's wondering, what other options do I have? And he goes and gets a consult. And so Dr. Bakari says, we can try something else first. You've deferred surgery. Let's do some physical therapy. Let's do shockwave therapy. Let's see if that helps relieve your symptoms. And for the most part, it does. The pain that he's feeling almost completely goes away. When I say almost, he'll get it every once in a while. Sometimes it's from things that involve activity. And sometimes he'll tell you he still gets it when, just for no reason, he doesn't know why. But the pain symptom, which wasn't really limiting him before either way, he's got the collar on, he's still trying to do the things he wants to do, subsides for the most part. What he still ends up having, though, after the treatment is that numbness. And the way he's going to describe it to you, it's like, he'll say, it's like falling asleep on your arm, and then it starts to get better throughout the day, and then you go to sleep and it starts all over again. And this is 2022, and that is a symptom that he still has today. It's been over 1,000 days. And you might think, okay, your arm, the way it feels when it's asleep, no big deal. It's been over 1,000 days of that still going on. This is the second place where we're going to have a fight. This is the second point the defense wants to make. He doesn't comply fully with his PT either. I think they say either one time a week for 8 weeks. They say it could be up to 3 times a week. They don't. We see both in the records. So grant them that. At a minimum, they wanted 7 visits. It could be as high as 7 to 12 visits of PT. He does 4 of them. defense is going to argue to you today that had he done 6 more exercise sessions, the numbness would have disappeared. We don't agree with that. If he was still saying he's in pain, that would be a better argument in our view. But that numbness is coming from discompression. And that's why they recommended surgery. And so one of the things that we're all going to be talking about today is, if he had gone through the other door, would it be different than it is now? And if so, how so? This is Andrew's own writing, right? This is his intake at Dr. Bakari. This is December of 2022. What alleviates your symptoms? Don't know. What medication has been most helpful? The steroids. And you see him marking down. Aching, sharp, burning, numbness, tingling, radiating weakness. This is Dr. Bakari going through the treatment plan that we just talked about. I'm going to have him to keep his C-collar up there. Let's stop the steroids. Let's stop the anti-inflammatories. It's not good to do that for long periods of time. Let's do the shockwave and the PT therapy. Let's do something that's different, a little more holistic. And this is what I was telling you before. This is how we know the number of sessions that he was probably planned to have. It's 8 weeks total. And we don't know whether it was going to be 3 times a week descending, because you don't always go 3 times a week, every week for the whole thing, or 1 a week and keep it that way. It's unclear in the records, so I say grant them the higher number. Just makes it easier. Let's say he has to go 7 and 12. He makes it to 4 because of that issue with his mom, and he doesn't have a car, and he doesn't have friends, and the ones that he has that are helping him out with housing and cars for the ones he's getting to are getting pretty pissed off about it. Because he's not contributing the way he was before when he was getting these arrangements. What are you deciding today? Was the collision the proximate cause of Andrew's injuries? We think that's obvious in this case. Sometimes that's a hard thing that we fight about. When things pre-existing, you're old, you're a wrestler, you had this, that, and the other. He's 35, you saw the accident on film, and 4 or 5 different medical practice groups who have no relation to one another are all saying the same thing. So we think at the end of this case you should say, yeah, it was the proximate cause of the injuries. And then the second thing we're going to ask you to do, and I have to be careful by the way, I want to let you know, I'm not trying to be shy or coy about what we're asking for today. The rules have changed, and I'm not allowed to tell you right now. If I had my way, I would tell you exactly what we're asking for today right now. I have to wait until my closing argument before I do that. So I'm not trying to hide anything from you. We may not really make our ask later. But we're going to have to appraise the nature and the extent of these damages. And you're going to have to consider, if he had done something different, would there be a difference between those damages? And if so, how much? You're asking me to do a gross thing today. Because part of what is easy today is to award him his economic harm. That's what the doctor's charged. He has no say in that. If you have a gripe with the American healthcare system, that's not for us today. Let's go deal with the hospitals. His total medical bills are somewhere between $61,000 and $62,000 for just what we saw now. For 2 hospital visits, a couple of follow-ups with 1 orthopedist, and 4 visits at the 7th one. The majority of the billing comes from the first 2 hospitals. When we're talking about the word mitigation, that's the word the defense is going to use today. I want you to think about that other path and what would happen to the economics on this case if he had gone the other way. What's strange about this case is it's not a case where we're going to hear argument about doctors inflating bills or someone overtreating just to run them up to make it look bad. We have kind of the opposite problem today. That's what we're going to be talking about. Decide how to recognize the harm. That's the gross thing we're going to ask you to do today. Because even though it's called non-economic damages, the only thing that we can do in a civil system is award money. It's gross. It's a lot. What you're not doing today. Deciding anything about fault. Talked about the oath, staying in the box. If someone starts talking to you about percentages of fault, or woulda, coulda, shoulda, about what we're doing in terms of driving, gently but firmly tell them that's not what we're talking about today. They've graciously admitted fault for causing the crash itself, but that's it. So, our gripe is we don't think that's full accountability. We're happy that we don't have to talk about that issue today. What the dispute is the nature and extent of the effect on Andrew's life. Thank you for your time.
so the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming back. Thank you for hearing our case. You just heard Ms. Samuels speak, and he indicated what I'm going to talk about, and he doesn't know what I'm going to talk about. Because I don't take issues with Mr. Styles' medical treatment or any other bills incurred here. His special damages are his special damages. The medical treatment that he got goes from the accident. The medical expenses that he incurred came out of his accident, and all of that were caused by Mr. Williams, my client. So he's going to be compensated today, and I'm going to ask you to compensate him for his medical treatment he did. You already heard what this case is about. All the accident that happened on September 19th. To summarize what Mr. Samuels just said, after the accident on September 20th, Mr. Giles went to the hospital and indicated he had medical at the time. And the CAB medical ran tests, imaging, we saw that he fractured his cervical spine, placed him in a brace, and sent him over to Grady. Dr. Grady, also on September 19th, they reran the test, confirmed the fracture, left him in the brace, discharged him with medication, pain medication that's simply and told him go seek outpatient care. He was go to an orthopedic surgeon and neurosurgeon, which he did on September 26th. And he went to the surgeon, said, again, ran the test, confirmed the fracture, and recommended surgery. T6, T7, to fix the fracture. He elected not to do that. You heard that. December 2nd, 2022, he went to Dr. Kukari. He wanted to do something else, which he did. That was his choice. He worked with Dr. Kukari, did physical therapy from other conservative treatments. And by January 6th of 2023, so I'm not here to argue whether he had 6 physical therapy or 12 physical therapy. That's not my argument. He did his physical therapy with Dr. Kukari. It was in addition. He stopped treating. In 1,000 days, he said. And in 1,000 days, 3 years, he's not sought any additional care. He's not consulted with any other doctor. This is a serious accident. We're not disputing that. We're not disputing that it was a serious accident. We're not disputing that Mr. Williams caused the accident. We're not disputing that he was injured as a result of the accident. We're not disputing the treatment that he received as a result of the accident. All we're disputing is what is the appropriate amount of damage he should receive after he's been compensated for his medical expenses. What is general damage of human suffering? That we couldn't figure out because Mr. Giles made certain choices on his own. So you're going to listen to the evidence with an open mind. Do not make a decision until you hear all of the evidence. Take notes to take notes. But after the evidence is closed, and we each give our closing argument, we'll both talk about what we believe is the appropriate amount of damages that should be awarded in this case. Our numbers will be based on the evidence, and you cannot make your decision based on anything else other than what happens in court, what's presented in court. Simply as you have to be careful both parties. Mr. Samuels told you that, and the judge told you that Mr. Giles had the burden of proof. Going to that, that's another duty. That's a duty to mitigate the damages. Going to that.
The jury, what we're going to do is take a quick break before we do this. I try to take one fact every hour or so. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you all very short instructions. Again, you're going to be able to repeat these back to me by the end of this trial. Y'all are going to knock as soon as you're ready, and then we'll start at the end. So here's the instructions. Members of the jury, while you're outside of this courtroom, do not talk about this case. Do not investigate in any way. You may receive information about this case only while you're inside the jury box and only from two sources. First, you will receive evidence through testimony and exhibits from the witness stand, and secondly, the law you receive from me. These attorneys and their clients have worked diligently for years to bring this case before you, and if you receive information from any other source, it could seriously disrupt or prematurely end this trial. Please follow these instructions. All right, if you all will step back to the back, and if anybody wants to go out to the main bathroom in the hallway, the bailiff can walk you out. Knock as soon as you're ready. Yes, I'll just ask if anybody wants to step out to the lobby, that one of y'all just walk them out the back, so you have eyes on them. All right, so quick break, any housekeeping before we jump into your quick witness?
No, when we pre-admit, we're just gonna do that in their presence, right?
That's correct. So
Okay.
I figured we'd go ahead and just make certain that y'all look those up one more time, make certain you're good, and then we do that before you, once you call your first witness, we're supposed to get that.
Yeah, what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna play that video, and then we'll call.
That's on. You good with that?
Yes, please.
All right, perfect. Well, we're gonna, again, everybody just step to the restroom, and if you all wanna step to the restroom and avoid jurors if they're out there, you just go up on the floor in the bathroom. All right, very good.
And Judge, not to make you do more work, the next witness I'm calling is Mr. Williams, and it's 4 clips totaling 6 minutes. If you're willing and able to do it for those, then that's all I need it for.
Okay. All right, well, so we're gonna start with testing the video. Go ahead.
Yes, that's a good one.
Let's see if I can fish this up.
Thank you.
May not be a video producer, but I play one on television. All right, there we go. Okay, so for record purposes, just to make it clear, I pushed the exhibit up and the exhibit download that was provided to me yesterday. All right, you tell me what you want me to do next.
Just publish and play to the jury, please.
All right, the video is up. I'm going to hit play. 31 seconds long.
Your Honor, next we call President Williams by way of video recorded deposition. Exhibit 2. And it starts with this video clip from just taking his oath, and then there's 3 other clips that are substantive. Do you need the transcript?
No, I have a digital copy.
Okay.
Let me see if I can make this place.
Should be here in audio.
Yeah, it's on my audio. Let me push that.
24. All right.
All right, pulled up, it says number 1 oath. I assume that's what you'd like me to play?
Yes, Judge, thank you.
All right, it's 30 seconds long. Here we go.
All right, we're going on with the record. The deposition of Tresnick Williams. Today's date is August 21st, 2024, and the time is approximately 2:06 p.m. Will the court reporter please swear in the witness?
Sir, please raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Try to keep your voice loud. Thank you.
Next one, Your Honor, the one that's titled In His Own Words.
Remember happening that night, but before you do, give me in your own words what you remember happening that night. But before you do, I have this happening sometime at 9 o'clock at night. Does that sound right to you? Is that a yes?
Yes.
My apologies. So go ahead and tell me what you remember happening, but start from the moment you get into your car and lead us to the accident if you can.
Oh, okay. I had went into a gas station, right? I'm starting right before the accident happened. I went into a gas station. I was actually heading to my girl house on the south side of Atlanta. And as I'm heading there, it started to rain. And the car that I was driving in was like the tires probably the car was fairly new. So I'm guessing as it started to rain, I lose traction of the car. Like it started to spin out on me, and then that will cause the earthquake.
Okay. Do you recall passing through an intersection with the traffic light?
Yeah.
Do you remember what color the light was facing you at the time you lost control?
Yellow.
Did you lose control right before the light? How far away from the light were you when you first lost control of the vehicle?
I felt the car fishtailing from like it just sliding. So as it's sliding, I'm trying to get it back straight. So it probably would be like I was close to the light when it happened, but it was cars that was already stopped, backed up, power from the light. So like I had to turn from the cars before I even got to the light because the line of cars was still backed up. It was actually a wreck right down the same street where I had it. So a lot of cars are in there.
And you beat me to my next question, but I'm going to rephrase what you said and tell me if I've got it right. So are you coming off an off-ramp?
So it's a curve. It's like a steep curve, like
a turn road leading up to this intersection.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so there are cars backed up, you believe, because of an accident that happened ahead of you.
Uh-huh.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Sorry again. And so you saw flashing lights from a police car up ahead before you got to that intersection.
I did.
And to avoid colliding with the traffic that had backed up, you're saying you tried to take evasive action by going to the left, to your left?
The left. Yeah, to the left.
But you weren't able to get the vehicle to stop.
It kept sliding.
Would you agree with me if I said you were traveling very fast at that point in time?
I couldn't really because it was like I would think I was going at speed limit like 35 or 40 miles an hour, so I don't feel as if I was going too much over.
Were you applying your brakes at all as you're taking that evasive action? Why did you have to pull to the left?
I think when I realized how close the car was as I'm coming around the curve, I think I went to hit the brakes and to kind of tap the gas a little bit too, and they kind of probably made it slide a little bit more than what it already was from coming around the corner.
Next judge is the one with the word Tesla in it.
Or no?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, I'm going to hit play. I'm going to let it play through. Okay, Mr. Williams. Just rewinding a little bit. That green car that you saw come through the intersection, is that the car you were driving?
Correct.
And you see it the whole time this Tesla is approaching the traffic light. The light facing the Tesla is green, correct?
Correct.
Does this video accurately show the events of the accident on that night?
I mean, it showed the light. It showed the light being green, but it don't show the car, the wreck and stuff over there. Me having to go around.
Right, but as far as the impact with the cars involved in your accident, does this video accurately depict the accident itself? If I showed it to the jury, if this case went to trial, would you say that it's inaccurate?
No, I mean, if being that is this what happened, yes, it's on the camera.
And you see, as I'm playing this again for you, those police cars with the lights on, do you think that's from that prior accident you're talking about on the ramp?
It was.
Okay. And any comment about the speed at all after seeing the video itself? I know it's been a while since this happened.
Like I said, it probably just comes from realizing that I'm coming around and it's too late to stop now because I'm already spun out. So I'm trying to go ahead and get across.
The last foot judge is the one with the word impact in it.
Did you talk to Miss Goggins at all that night?
After I did.
Was her car able to be repaired?
No, it was sold out.
What about the damage to the other vehicles involved? Do you remember, which part of which vehicles were damaged after this collision?
At the time, by me just not getting out, I was just really trying to make sure I didn't hurt nobody. But I wasn't even conscious of looking at the car. I was just making sure everyone was still okay.
The people were more important than the cars at that point in time.
It was.
You were worried that they could possibly be hurt and you wanted to check.
Yes.
You would agree with me that this was a hard impact.
Yeah, it was.
That's all for Mr. Williams' testimony, Your Honor. Thank you for your help.
All right. So is there anything else on Mr. Williams before we go to the next one? All right. Mr. Williams' testimony is open and concluded. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, it's time to call Andrew Dias. The box, please.
Please swear to affirm that the testimony you're about to give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Andrew, I want to give context before we get into the medical situation, okay? Bear with me. Can you talk to the jury about what the lifestyle was like, how you were getting by before any injury occurs?
Just call the mic. Get it up close so we'll get back.
What actually doing odd jobs for friends, landlord, trying to get my day.
And what about secret shopping? What do you do for that?
I had a tourist, go in there, tour, talk around with the pizza agent, offer, things like that. They're just like, I guess, the things that step up there.
And that's part of your nerves, but try to get closer to the microphone so they can hear you, please. And those things you just talked about, door dashing, odd jobs, standing work, those are passions?
Yeah, different days.
At that time, what were you really passionate about in terms of work?
Development and mental health.
What about mental health?
My former job, I worked at a treatment facility in Denver. That's a behavioral clinic, and I moved up to the housing supervisor for the PhD program in this clinic that so you can look at that's some development and stuff like that.
I guess you actually developing tie into mental health. What did you enjoy about that field in general, not the apps and mental health?
It was a mental facility, so we get kind of specific all sorts of different diagnoses. And then it's the way that we do, like the transition and the progress and like it's just
What kinds of things at that time were really important? Like we're talking right before the crash, in terms of timeline, September of 2022. What kinds of things were important to you in your life at that time before you were injured?
just basic necessities and all getting by, getting ahead, just waiting for the future, kind of grabbing stuff that I was in.
Talking about those like basic needs. I'm someone who, I haven't had to deal with what you dealt with. Give us a window into what goes through your head when you're trying to address those needs for someone.
Just simple basic day-to-day things like I'm going to head, make sure I first together, make sure it's stable, like anything like this, help myself self-sufficiency, getting around,
What kinds of things would you like to do with your free time when you have it?
a lot of computer stuff, spend my first day
what you remember happening on the night of the crash.
I was doing DoorDash. I was on my way to the Western Barbecue to the restaurant up the street from where that's happened. I was driving, headed to the drop-off spot. Next thing I know, I kind of come to it in the car. Everybody was recorded. I kind of sit there for a minute. I'm not sure if I should get out or not because I don't know if to open the door too or if I can open the door. Or just kind of like, I finally like push myself to open the door and get out and I kind of look around and I kind of stumble over to the side of the sidewalk bit and just kind of standing there like looking it all around and kind of noticed the hands start to turn and I was just like in the car, I tried to go back. I would like walk to the mirrors where everybody's kind of doing their own thing, so I just kind of stood around for a little bit until somebody came to me after it was okay.
Who was the first person to come up to you?
Who was the person that was there?
At that point in time, leading off where you just left off, talk to us about what you were feeling.
I was kind of like I just didn't know what was going on, like in my arms hurting, what I should do at that point, and I was talking to the box or whatever right before, I really didn't know, like I said, I called DoorDash, I called DoorDash, I called my mom, called my friend who was waiting on me, just tried to touch base and get input from him, like, yeah, that's the first. You know, that's good.
What's your mom's name?
Really?
Stephanie Lane? Stephanie Willing. What's your relationship with mom at that time?
What time was it? I mean, we were, we talked every day, sitting there, arguing.
And so when was the first time you realized you needed medical attention?
It was something that I like it also. It's the best thing also. I'm aware that your voice is no, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, this is a very normal part that when you're talking, folks aren't used to like their voice really booming out like this, and it makes people uncomfortable. And so I just need you to remember to stay close to that mic because I'm watching the jury lean forward, and I'm having a little bit of trouble when I'm sitting next to you. We want the jury to hear what you're saying, and the staff members to hear what you're saying.
I'm going to move over here a little bit.
Just remember that thing gets loud when you get close.
Much better. Well, I'm going to ask my last question, though. I don't even remember it. When was the first time you realized you needed medical attention?
Right after the accident, I was waiting on the ambulance. I was my mission plan was to go in the ambulance.
Do you remember how long you waited?
Before they even told me anything, like, I went to the house, like, before I got any permission of the ambulance, because they said they were handle another situation that had just happened, and they would feel it. I'm really excited for sure.
How did you get home and check on your dog? The Uber?
Yes.
And how did you get to the first hospital that you went to? What do you remember them telling you? Talk to us, walk us through the experience you had, just like first person view when you arrived at the first hospital.
I'm still kind of in shock, like I was nervous to begin with because it's a medical situation, like, I didn't know what was going on. I get there, then we just like a normal check-in with the lady, like an emergency room. We did my vitals, and all that, and we got me back there, did some scans, and all that, and for me, just kind of started waiting around, and didn't know it was serious, but then I noticed sitting there, like, several hours waiting, just standing up on my feet.
When did you first realize that they were taking this serious?
I came back with the results from the CT scan, and immediately got put in the brace, immediately, like, I knew I was being monitored all the time, like, when it comes to the CT really quick, it really talking to me, like, I was sitting for, like, hours at a time, and then all of a sudden, they put me on my back, put this person, put me back over the nurses in the way, took me to the baby, just a lot real fast.
How are you being monitored?
Somebody was making sure I wasn't like moving around or, I was keeping the brace in and everything like that.
So someone sitting with you. And so what happened next?
for me, I know it's gravy, maybe, I think they did more scans and everything, everything went on.
What did they talk to you about when they were releasing you?
Just keep the brace on, follow-ups, and they told me what's wrong with me, like specific symptoms and specific diagnosis. Yeah.
Did they give you pain medication at grade? Help?
I didn't really take pain medication, I got the steroids as well, and it's really nasty.
When they're discharging you from Grady, what are their follow-up instructions to you, if you remember?
It's pretty easy.
Did they talk to you about surgery at that point in time? At that point in time, you were being, I know you're head nodding, by the way, but for Ms. Leach, you verbalized your answer, okay? Did they talk to you about any need for surgery at that time? And did you anticipate any need for surgery at that time for any reason?
Didn't consider severity. I mean, I consider the severity. I just get over the range of. I was questioning everything myself. Like I didn't know if this was something simple, or if it was going to be really drawn out, or how it was going to like. I just kind of doing that. That's kind of
Your right arm and pins and needles at that time at Grady. When did you first notice that symptom, if you remember?
it was before after the a little while after the most of the time. So,
Did you follow up with an orthopedist after Grady? Who did you follow up with?
the one that recommended, I think it wasn't the orthopedic, it was, it was Peachtree or something Peachtree.
What was your experience like at Peachtree in terms of bedside manner?
Kind of normal. I didn't really kind of, how to treatment, like, I didn't really know what's going on. I was still kind of like, you know, if it, like, if it didn't seem like, my paperwork and everything, telling me what's going on, like, but not in detail. They just basically telling me what it is and so they go away.
I know you're nervous.
Yeah, that's the word.
We want to enunciate because this is the one time they get to hear you, okay?
Sorry.
No, you're doing fine, okay? Take a deep breath. So you're at Peachtree. We were talking about kind of how they're treating you. You said you felt like you weren't like a part of the process. Is that what you said?
I mean, I didn't really know what was going on. I couldn't use a lot more information while it was happening.
What do you mean by that?
I just, I kind of confused on it's like, what to expect, anything.
Did you trust that doctor? Why?
I barely, until I saw that picture, I barely remember the word. I did not see him at all.
So when do you remember them first recommending surgery?
The sticking through it was my last visit. It was after that. I just looked into looking into other options and seeing what was going to do because that surgery was kind of came like intensely, like really intensely doing all of a sudden, like they're they're still in 63, but it's kind of I was
What was your head at that time when they're telling you, hey, you might need to do this surgery?
shocked. It's just a lot of respect that I didn't know what to expect. Kind of surgery to break my knee because I thought I was going to leave. I was going to put in anesthesia. I was going to get more anesthesia. But just a lot of unknowns that that's not being interesting.
How did you get into Peachtree Ortho at that time?
Florida, it's going to just a bus system. My mom helped me with Uber 600 people. I did small jobs for him where he was in a struggle.
Sorry, I don't want to keep reminding you, but I just want to make sure if I'm having trouble hearing you, I know they're
Sorry.
So you mentioned that mom was helping, you taking the bus. Is there any other way that you're getting there at that time? What other reasons did you have for not wanting to do the surgery right then and there?
I didn't know what alternatives to be to surgery after it's towards like it was serious surgery, like becoming nervous. I was my mind was flooded with like doubt and dread and confusion.
Up to that point, do you have any surgical history? Did you never experience a surgery in your life? Did the doctor talk to you about what you would need to do for follow-up treatment after surgery? They never spoke to you about what recovery looked like. Did that surprise you?
I didn't know what surgery was going to be like necessarily. Just didn't tell me what the surgery was.
If you had to do follow-up treatment for the surgery, how would you get there at that time? We're talking about that time frame, but at the time they're recommending surgery, how would you be able to travel for follow-up treatment if it were prescribed?
I didn't realize I was 100%. I was very happy to these appointments that were restrained. But anyway.
So, where did you go to get your second opinion? Sorry, sir.
No, for orthopedics.
What would I recommend you do? Push your mic a little bit. There we go.
Testing. Hello?
Better. Okay. We're the canary in the coal mine for everything here, so. So, you go to like orthopedic. Is that where you met Dr. Bakari?
Yes.
Talk to me about his bedside manner.
He was very personable. I met him every time I came in. Just out and checked in on me. It was just very informative. He broke it down what was going on. It was just a nice guy. Like, he really made me feel better. I felt like I trusted him.
What kinds of therapy, if you remember, did he prescribe for you?
It sounds similar. I've never heard of it before. It's similar to what it sounded like. It sounded it was different.
At the time you're seeing Dr. Bakari, but before his treatment starts, what are you feeling in terms of the right side of the arm?
Pain progressing.
When you say progressing, what do you mean?
It's just more. I don't know what it's like. It's like different ways. Like different versions of it, like fire. It was a more obvious if there was something wrong.
When you say comes in, is this something that's happening all the time or something that's coming and going?
At that time, it was pretty consistent. The steroids would help. Kind of time to dissipate, but I don't know all the time.
The radiating, the numbness and tingling, for people that have never experienced something like this before, try your best to verbalize and describe what that felt like to you.
Like the worst part of like your hand up, like you feel kind of sleep on your hand. It's just like the worst part of it, like it's just bad. It's like you just gotta fight through it.
What did you do on your own to try to deal with that?
Just kind of physical therapy and stuff. It's like
You beat me to my next question there. What, other than shockwave therapy, what other therapy did you do with Dr. Bakari?
they just see him with exercises.
Did you do exercises?
Yes.
Did he teach you how to do those exercises on your own?
Yes.
What kinds of things were you doing?
Just things like stress balls, moving the hand up and down, like just standard, just like doing as much as this. Just to keep it organized and get your strength back up.
Did he show you himself?
Yes.
And like a staff member, send you off to a staff member to do it? And at that point, when he's sending you home with exercises, are you still wearing a collar?
Yes.
What's it like wearing a collar all the time like that?
A lot of questions.
What do you mean?
Just people curious about what happened, and want to know the story and details, and like a lot of people get curious, get a lot of looks, but
In between Peachtree Orthopedic and Life Orthopedic, in that period of time where you're trying to make decisions about what to do, what things are you worried about in your personal life?
the living situation had definitely kind of started fizzling out because of his frustration. Happy with the odds and ends. Really started thinking, that living situation started getting worse. And I was having to move around, getting forward, all the still going through all the 3 months or so. Just practically day to day
period of time I just gave you between Peachtree and Life Orthopedic, are you doing any of that gig work?
Not as much. I'm doing all the online stuff to try to, get some other jobs, but not,
What kind of online stuff?
just surveys, going on, doing, more graphic design for some, brands like freelancer, like, something like that.
And why did you not continue on with Life Orthopedic beyond the 4 visits you heard me talk about?
Kind of there. But it was, I'm just kind of there, and it was, it's not really appeals with him. It's just really like a limited, and it's just kind of so.
And in terms of just pain symptoms I want to talk about now, at this point in time when you discontinue going to Dr. Bakari at Life Orthopedic, what do you feel and how often are you feeling it?
Not so much pain, just the tears keep happening, around this, and it still happens, but clearly I'm not as functioning, by the time I can follow walk, I was okay to come down and do things, I started doing too much overworking, but I still don't know, I was, I'm going to a great sick numbers.
So you're not having like the shockwave therapy, the physical therapy, and your home exercises for the most part are resolving the pain part of this. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. At that point in time, is Dr. Bakari ever mentioning surgery?
No.
Why not go back to a doctor at any point in time from then to now if you're still having, this is an important question, and so make sure you talk loudly so they can hear you. You're still having, today, as we sit here today, do you still get numbness?
Yes.
Okay. How does that affect your day-to-day?
It's just very, it's annoying, it's very bothersome, it's just like I'm doing like a lot of things, it's a lot of tasks that I try to do, but
But why not try to get treatment for that?
It's expensive.
Okay. Expense is one reason. Do you have other reasons?
I'm just, basically, I think it's stuck with it.
I'm sorry, you're not what?
Doctors like the surgery. This is not to do with that.
Is it your understanding that the only way to resolve that numbness is surgery?
Pretty much.
When you were doing the shockwave therapy, like as you're in there doing it, what are they doing, by the way, for that?
It sounds like it's like it's just going there. It's kind of like you're going there for a CAT scan, but it's like going with like the vibrations of it. It's interesting.
When you're getting your PT and your shockwave therapy, is that relieving any of the numbness symptoms you had while you're doing that treatment?
During the treatment, yeah. For that day.
For that day?
Mm-hmm.
And then how long does that relief last when you're doing the treatment?
During the treatment. Yes, just during the treatment.
As soon as the treatment stops, the numbness comes back?
Slowly but surely.
Okay. The exercise you did at home, did that help with numbness at all? No.
It agitates it.
It what?
Agitates it.
At one point, the medical records show that your Peachtree doctor ordered an MRI for your shoulder. Why did you not complete that MRI?
Don't do that, or I had another appointment with the other one. It's like lights. It's going on.
If surgery were offered to you today, is that something you're interested in? Why?
Like, still have this same videos that just, like, at this point, I mean, if this is all I have to deal with, then I'd rather not get surgery.
Did you have a drop in income, though, after this accident?
Yes.
To be fair to the other side, though, is it fair that a lot of that's attributed to not having a car?
Pretty much.
What's your living situation been like since Dr. Bakari?
It's been a roller coaster. I've had ups and downs. hotel experience, I was living in a house about 9 months in Florida, I was doing a different job, I really loved it, and a couple of years, it's just been all over stuff.
And specific today, how often are you feeling numbness down your right arm?
Okay.
Do you still feel any pain at all coming from your neck or in your arms, or is it just numbness?
It's just terrible, guys.
Is there anything you want to add to help? I know you're a little shy, but to help with it understand what you're going through right now? I think perfectly normal.
Joseph Cross.
Oh, sorry.
I only have a few questions for you. Can you hear me okay? And it's not been confirmed. Did you stop treating with Dr. Kari in January 2023? And you indicated that Dr. Bakari worked with you himself. And the treatment he provided for you was beneficial. It at least ended the pain. And you've not sought any treatment from any provider at any point since ending treatment with Dr. Bakari.
All right, redirect.
None, Your Honor.
All right, let's take another quick break, everybody. So same instructions as before. It's my moment to shine. Here we go. Members of the jury, while you're outside of this courtroom, do not talk about this case or investigate it in any way. You're to receive information about this case only while you're inside this jury box, only from two sources. First, the witnesses through testimony and exhibit, and the law that you'll receive from me. The attorneys and their clients have worked diligently for years to bring this case before you. If you receive information from any other source, it could severely disrupt or prematurely end this trial. Please follow these instructions. Anyone, while you're back and back, wants to set the rest of the hallway, just let the bailiffs know. They'll walk you out and walk you back. Knock when you're ready. Thank you very much. Jury's clear and nobody's coming back out. So, quick bathroom break, everybody. Any housekeeping from the plaintiff before we?
None.
Any housekeeping from the plaintiff? All right, quick bathroom break. We'll continue. Do you have your next witness?
I'm gonna rest.
Your wrist. Okay, that's what I suspected. So I have a draft of the charges finished. Would y'all rather email them to you?
For me, print,
That's fine. Just some folks want one, and some folks want the other. So I'm going to print, again, this is just a kitchen sink version. I'll have you know I did not retype these from scratch. I got an older one and repurposed it. So if you see anything in there, all those. Where is this? Samuels, you may call your next witness.
Your Honor, plaintiff rests.
The plaintiff has rested members of the jury, which means the plaintiff has given you all the primary evidence subject to any rebuttal that may happen. At this point, the defense has an opportunity, but as you've heard me say repeatedly, not an obligation to present their defense if they wish. Ms. Joseph, do you have any witnesses to call or evidence to present?
I do not, Judge, I rest.
So as you just heard, the defense has no obligation to present any defense and has chosen not to call any witnesses or present any defense. What that means to you all is that there will be no rebuttal because there wasn't a defense case put up, which means the evidence in this case is not closed. I have a series of mandatory things that I must now do with the attorneys. Technically, some of those were supposed to be done between those 2 amendments. But we're just going to do them all afterwards. So what we're going to do is, it is 11:27 right now. I'm going to send you all to lunch. And then when we come back, we'll do this last little bit, and then the case will be yours. So you will have the case fairly quickly after lunch. But I have a series of discussions that I'm required to have with the attorneys outside of your presence. And this seemed to me like a good early lunch would be a good way for us to do that without you all having to sit and wait and wonder what in the world we're doing. So, with that said, I'm going to give you a couple of instructions that you've never heard before and you can't possibly anticipate what I'm about to say. Here we go. Members of the jury, while you're outside of this courtroom, do not talk about this case or investigate it in any way. You may receive information about this case only while you're inside that jury box and only from 2 sources. First, the evidence through testimony and exhibits from the witness stand and the law that I give you and nowhere else. The attorneys and their clients have worked diligently for years to get this case to you. And if you receive information from any other source, even each other, it seriously disrupts or prematurely end this trial. Please follow these instructions. What I'm going to do with you all is have you gather up your items, put whatever back in your bag and you're going to leave, and we'll be back here at 1:30. We're going to stay and work a little bit into the lunch hour, and then they're going to get a short lunch, and then we'll jump back in at 1:30, and you all should have this case early afternoon. Okay? Thank you all very much. If you need anything, talk to me. 1:30 for y'all.